but to stay connected to me in this new, stepping into maybe this comfort of me and this, like, I'm on fast growth mode. Don't question that. I want to grow as a human, but I don't want to be addicted to progress in a sense that there's not massive rest. So, I mean, with that being said, rest. Rest is huge. This is kind of a side note, but as I'm stepping in, one of the things that I'm really working on is sleep, and then Sabbath. Like, what does it mean to actually take a Sunday or whatever day you choose and not have it look like every other day? Like, I'm not a slave. You're not a slave. Doing more doesn't always actually grow you. This next thing that's become really interesting to me lately is less. Less. I mean, my network of friends and connections, I want to grow and expand indefinitely. But the people that I'm really, really sharing life and time with, my brother and my parents have really come in to the people that I want to make sure I'm spending time with. About to go on a trip with my brother and our wives next week. I'm so pumped about this. And it's become more real to me because, with Brooklyn about to move out in a year or whatever, her sisters have been like, oh my gosh, what's it going to be like for Brooklyn not to be in our room anymore, like going to sleep at night? And so I've been thinking like, oh my gosh, my kids, I hope that they're really connected well when they're adults. And so it's like, well, how have I really been connected well to my brother Nick, and then I'd say my cousin Paul, that I just love and adore. That how am I spending time with these guys where I'm really connected with them? And same goes with my parents. It's like there's this picture of my grandfather hugging my wife on the counter, and I see it, and he's not around anymore. And I go, someday that will be true about my parents. So how am I neglecting this? And when I go back to California for work, I go home, and what's funny is as soon as I go home, I want to run and go see my friends in town. I'm 40, and I think, shoot, one day Brooklyn's going to come home or Brody's going to come home, and I would love for them to want to be with me and not just run off to their friends all the time. And so I'm realizing I want to do that same thing with my folks and pay more attention to that relationship, that connection. And, it's really interesting. Yesterday, my parents flew into town because since Sarah and I are going out of town to celebrate my 40th, with my brother and his wife. Um, my son chose to go surfing instead of go see his grandparents, which he hasn't seen in a couple of months. And that was one of the things why I was mad and called him on it. Like, dude, you missed an opportunity. And so last night I sat with him at the counter and I said, hey, dude, check this out. I said, one day you're going to have a son, maybe multiple, but let's just say you have a son one day, and you're going to be my age, you're going to be a dad, and say we're not neighbors, say we don't live on the same island, and I fly over to see you, or I come to see you, and your son hasn't seen me in months. How are you going to want him to connect with me? Because how important is our relationship, Brody? Like, you and me are tight. And he's like, yes, I get it. And it was just a really important moment to unlock for him. Like, why does it matter to connect with your grandpa when I know you're getting that text that all your friends are going surfing, which you could do almost every day? So digging into relationships, key. Now, I said this a moment ago. I said my brother and now a few good friends. It's funny. Really been liking Zach Bryan lately. And in one of his songs, he says, "I just want a few good friends I can count on one hand." And I think to some extent in my 20s and 30s, it was like there's this maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's Instagram, I don't know what it is, but you spread yourself so thin that you might have a ton of relationships or connections, but what's the depth of those? And I think for a long time I was looking for like the perfect best friend, or perfect friend, whatever. I don't even know what that means. And there's people that have been in my life for a long time that I adore and love. And one in particular, Josh, it's like, and we are the ones who shared property together. It's like having people who know you and who have known you and who have loved you and accepted you through all stages of your life. And now it's like literally cry when dude leaves because we live in different states. There's just like, you got to keep those relationships that matter. It's so easy to just go day after day after day. And I'm not saying you got to talk on the phone every day, but to stay connected, to me, in this new, stepping into maybe this comfort of me and this, like, I'm on fast growth mode. Don't question that. I want to grow as a human, but I don't want to be addicted to progress in a sense that there's not massive rest. So, I mean, with that being said, rest. Rest is huge. This is kind of a side note, but as I'm stepping in, one of the things that I'm really working on is sleep, and then Sabbath. Like, what does it mean to actually take a Sunday or whatever day you choose and not have it look like every other day? Like, I'm not a slave. You're not a slave. Doing more doesn't always actually grow you. No. And if you're just so focused on growth and working, like, I'm not working 50 hours a week, not on my business. I am managing my time to where I'm investing and spending. You know what? Let's use the word spending. That's the shift. I'm shifting from investing time with my family to spending time with my family. Because sometimes when I think about investing, it's like, it's always about the future. It's always about the future. Like, I'm going to do this with Brody so that we're friends in the future. I'm going to do this with Sarah so that we're friends in the future, or we're good in the future. But sometimes you just need to spend the time. You need to blow the $100 without thinking. And what I mean by that is, am I spending time with my family where you're just so present? You're so present. I'll tell you, that is a shift I'm currently in, is shifting Ned from being intentional or investing would be the words I would use, to spending and engaged, which is present.